regular meeting of council for November 25th to order at 3 p.m. Jody.
Hello, please note council meetings are streamed live and recorded on YouTube. Attendees acknowledge that in accordance with Section 17(2)G of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, names, addresses, and other details provided when speaking at a council meeting will be publicly shared. Should you have any questions related to the collection or disclosure of personal information, please contact the Legislative and Advisory Services Division for the Town of High River by sending an email to FOIP or FOIP at highriver.ca.
Thanks, Jody. Approval of adoption of the agenda. I need to add one quick thing because it's very time sensitive, which is the letter to the Premier and the Government of Alberta regarding our position on the coal referendum that's happening down in Crow's Nest Pass today. So that needs to get taken care of today and sent off today. So we can bring that up in councillor reports. I can bring that forward. So with that, I'll ask for a motion that council adopt the agenda for the regular council meeting on November 25th, 2024, amended adding the coal petition letter to Premier Danielle Smith and the Government of Alberta, which will be added as within number 5 councillor reports. I didn't ask her, did I? Councillor Smith, please.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Previous meeting agenda approvals. I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Barton that omnibus motion adopts the November 7th, 2024 special council meeting minutes and the November 12th, 2024 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
You have my motion, Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Reserve policy POL 0091 implementation. David?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. If you will recall, March the 11th, 2024, Council adopted Reserve Policy POL-0091 and repealed the previous policy from 2015. During the March 11th meeting, my briefing to Council included the following comments. With this change in policy, there is no financial impact on the town's total financial position, aside from an adjustment to the pooling of existing reserves to better clarify and match future needs, consistent with the Financial Management Framework policy. Specific amounts to be repooled will be confirmed once Council approves the audited financial statements and auditor's report for year ended December 31st, 2023, in its upcoming meeting on April 22nd, 2024. To support administration's recommendation, within your package, we have provided the audited financial statements for year ended 2023, the new reserve policy, and a briefing memo from our legal advisors specifically noting the redesignation of reserve amounts or pooling of existing reserves as contemplated by the reserve policy, and its implementation per the request for decision is compliant with and does not run afoul of the MGA. With regards to the request for decision that is in front of you, I would like to propose a change to the recommendations to read as follows. Whereas Council adopted Reserve Policy POL 0091 at its meeting of March 11th, 2024, and directed administration to advance the implementation of the policy after the audited financial statements and auditor's report for year ended December 31st, 2023 were approved by Council and the Government of Alberta Regulatory Authority. And whereas administration has reviewed all reserve funds as required under paragraph 4 of Reserve Policy POL 0091, including consultation with external subject matter experts, in terms of field law for legal and BDO for audit. And whereas borrowing bylaw 4633-2024, second and third reading was defeated at the regular council meeting on October 28th, 2024, be it resolved that council approve the following transfer of reserve funds. $5,106,628 from tax stabilization to SURF, Asset Retirement Reserve, and $1 million from utility reserves to SURF, Asset Retirement or Replacement Reserve. And that council amend the 2024 capital budget to remove the use of borrowing as a financing mechanism to fund the aquatics facility expansion, and use funding of $14 million from the Community Infrastructure Reinvestment Fund, or SURF, Asset Replacement Reserve. And further, that council direct administration to return to council by Q3 2025 to present their annual review of reserve funds based on reserve fund positions from the audited financial statements and an auditor's report for year ended December 31st, 2024. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, David. And thanks for the change, which clearly defines what the numbers are and what we're doing with these reserves. So any questions from council? I'm not going to reread what David just read out, but yeah, maybe I will. It's only 3:07. So I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Jones that council approve the following transfer of reserve funds: $5,106,628 from tax stabilization to CIRF, Asset Replacement Reserve, and $1 million from utility reserves to CIRF, the Asset Replacement Reserve, and that council amend the 2024 capital budget to remove the use of borrowings as a financing mechanism to fund the aquatics facility expansion, and to use funding of $14 million from the Community Infrastructure Reinvestment Fund, Asset Replacement Reserve, for the aquatics facility expansion, and that council direct administration to return to council by end of Q3 2025 to present their annual review of reserve funds based on reserve fund positions from the audited financial statements and auditor's report for the year ended December 31st, 2024.
I'll give you that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thank you. Where am I? Any questions, comments? All in favor? Carried. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got it. Sorry, just give me a minute on this. So regarding the referendum that's happening down in the Crow's Nest Pass today, obviously we had a delegation from David Thomas last week, and the important piece is like what happens down in the pass. That's their decision. There's no question. That's what the referendum's doing, and how their council chooses to use that. The results of the referendum is 100% up to them. What we need to do is, because of comments the Premier has made in the past, that she will. She'll wait to hear what the locals have to say There's pretty big concerns regarding that statement that the provincial government is going to use this referendum that's actually a referendum about a project that's not even in their municipality. The actual project is in the county or the MD or Ranchland. So I'll just read the letter, as the Premier should not be taking any of the referendum results as a green light for the project in this province, because this coal mining stuff, it affects every single one of us, it's not an isolated thing that just affects the Crow's Nest Pass municipality. So, Dear Premier Smith, this letter is to formally request for the province to consider the broader impacts of metallurgical coal mine at Grassy Mountain. The non-binding referendum that Crow's Nest Pass is holding this month should not be considered the only voice when making a decision in regard to coal mining at Grassy Mountain. On behalf of my fellow council members, High River residents, and all Albertans who depend on the Highwood River, the purpose of this letter is to respectfully ask that you undertake additional local and province-wide public consultations to consider the broader impacts of a metallurgical coal mine at Grassy Mountain prior to any further consideration or action surrounding this project. The province considers public consultation an integral part of conducting municipal business, along with providing a transparent, accountable, collaborative, and regulatory approach to all business matters, yet the provincial government is not reciprocating the same responsibilities when considering these coal mining operations. There's a deplorable lack of public consultation taking place. Not only that, but the public consultation that has taken place is being completely ignored so far with the work, the Coal Policy Committee that was created by the government. They haven't implemented any of their recommendations. And the impact should be widely communicated beyond Crow's Nest Pass and the MD or Ranchlands. The non-binding referendum being conducted in the past should not be considered as the only voice in this decision-making process. Consideration should be extended to all Albertans downstream of the headwaters who will experience profound repercussions created from these operations, such as ecological impacts, agricultural production, wildlife preservation, quality and cleanliness of drinking water, and unnecessary pollution. The effects of these consequences will ultimately impact Albertans' health and quality of life. Albertans are counting on you to analyze and apply the scientific data that can be used to support the fact that sustainable development cannot continue to take precedence over our relationship with the environment. We must protect our vital water sources now and for generations to come, and these actions cannot be reversed. It is your sovereign duty to put the rights of Albertans first. Your quote, "Let's do this the Alberta way," strong, focused, and determined to do what you believe is the best interests of Albertans, no matter how hard that is. If what you speak is the truth and you truly do take pride in this province and everything it stands for, then for all the pioneers, farmers, and many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who have lived on and cared for these lands for generations, and for the rest of Albertans and municipalities located within the eastern slopes of the Rocky Mountains, who will be deeply affected by any decisions regarding coal mining in our region. We deserve to have a say in these matters. You don't have to listen very closely to hear the voices of concern. You just have to listen. Please do not hesitate to contact me if you have any questions or concerns. So I'll just rewind and reiterate again and again and again why this is important and why the town of High River is weighing in on all this conversation regarding coal mining, and why we're weighing in on the piece with Grassy Mountain and the Crow's Nest Pass. Is simply put that there's Grassy Mountain, and that's the first one that's on the docket. It is still not approved by the federal government. It is still the AER and the federal government declined the project 3 years ago now. But this government is definitely moving forward. The problem with Grassy Mountain is if Grassy Mountain goes, all the load-out infrastructure that goes on to the Highway 3 rail line that takes coal to Vancouver and then around the world, the problem is once that infrastructure is in place, that starts the domino effect of the mines all coming north. The Grassy Mountain is the furthest south, and I can guarantee you that piece where the loadout is the only way to, and the quickest way to get the coal to Vancouver. So Grassy goes, it's a domino effect coming north, and that's where it starts to affect, and it'll be decades, but it will, if those mines are allowed to go, it will affect the water quality and the water supply of High River, Alberta. So we are weighing in now because I don't want my kids or your grandkids to be trying to make this fight once the mines are there, because it'll be too late. So now's the time to fight against this. So I'll ask for a motion, or I'll make the motion that council approve the mayor signing this and sending it to Premier Danielle Smith and the government of Alberta. Questions? Comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Any other councillor reports? Any board and committee reports? Any public comments? See none? Say that? Okay. Yeah, I think we got that at 2:51, Iris. Which, what's it regarding? Like, how big is it? Is it a delegation level, or is it just a brief comment? Jody?
Yeah, I can read the email. So the overview of my comments are: follow up on October 28th, requesting an update on the timeline for making the capital budget plans and operating analysis available. And number 2, clarification of what is being proposed for the reserves in today's RFD. I apologize, Iris. I did respond, but of course it was like just before the meeting.
No, so the questions are both fair. So the reserves, I think we just. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, if you okay. Yeah, no, come forward if that's just the two we're speaking to, Iris. That's fine. You're okay. Go ahead.
It's ready? Oh, wait. Okay.
No, I will clarify one thing, just because I know you weren't at the last meeting. So what we're not going to do is allow what happened at the previous meeting, where it was 45 minutes, and your piece was no part of the actual delegation that was presented. So that's what we need. If it goes on outside of public comments is made for a couple of comments and we're good. But if it's a long thing, Iris, I will stop you and ask you to come back at the next council meeting as a delegation where you can submit your material prior to the meeting. Okay?
Could you clarify why you made the statement that my comments were not related to the delegation?
Because the delegation provided us information on what they were talking about, and yours was no part of that. None of your material was involved in that. That's why.
There was a component that said budget queries would be covered, and my name and the 2 subject areas were provided.
But nothing, no material. You had one slide in a PowerPoint presentation. That was all. That's all the material that you provided. Would you like
to hear some more information on that, or you're not interested?
Say that again?
I said, would you like to hear some clarification on that, or you're not interested?
I never said I wasn't interested.
No, I'm asking if you're not interested.
Please don't make those accusations. Don't put words in my mouth.
I'm not making an accusation. I'm trying to ask a question and get clarification.
What you asked? So
I said,
the previous delegation, you did not submit any material for what your portion was. None of that was in play. Carol submitted some information, but yours and Vicky's none of that information, and that's what we're not doing anymore. So if you're coming as a delegation, you can provide us with your presentation, like every other delegation does, which gives us time to be able to respond back at that meeting. But just coming as a delegation, and then, just like with Foothills Pride Society, we stopped one portion of their delegation this morning, or this afternoon, because one portion of it, they hadn't supplied any information whatsoever on it. So we stopped that. They're going to come back to the next meeting. So that's what I'm saying. We need to have information as to what you're presenting so that we have an opportunity to be able to answer to it. That's how delegations work. So, is that clear?
May I respond?
Yeah.
So it was our understanding that our delegation was for information, so there was no expectation that you were going to be responding to the presented information. And then secondly, because a delegation request has to be put in 2 weeks before, I only started working on the material due to the amount of research and work and the fact that I do have a full-time job. That material presented fell within the 2 subject areas that I did put on the slide, but the actual material was not available until literally the day before we appeared.
Yeah. Okay.
And again,
So-
when a delegation comes for information, it was our understanding we're providing the information. We're not expecting a discussion or council responses or solutions.
So help me clarify that. Because you made some pretty big allegations in that meeting. And so you were under the expectation that we would not respond to that, or should not respond to that?
Not during the meeting, because it's provided for information, and then it's up to council's will as to what they do with the information. And I would also say there were not allegations. Everything that I presented that day was tied to source references, and any time it was not clear to me, because I could not find in my research, because I had limited time, I made an extra effort to be careful in saying that things were unclear.
Okay, you and I can disagree on a few things there, so I'll allow you to go ahead with whatever your comments are today.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I would like to start with thanking the Mayor and Councillors Walsh and Nychuk, who isn't present today, for their responses to the delegation at the October 28th meeting. The delegation's purpose was to present information for Council's consideration. So the acknowledgement that Council would be reviewing and discussing that information as part of the ongoing budget process was appreciated. However, it was disappointing to learn that no agenda item was included for the November 12th council meeting to indicate the mayor was providing a prepared update on that delegation information. It is not clear why this agenda item was not provided to the residents of High River who may have been interested in attending that meeting had they known this content was being presented. Moving on to the first of 2 requests I have today, I am interested in an update on the timeline for adding the 6 links to the town's budgets and financial plans page for easier public access to the 2021, 2022, and 2023 annual 5-year capital plans, as well as the 3 sets of meeting minutes where those written plans were reviewed and updated by council. Given the magnitude of the expansion project, there is some urgency around having access to this information to understand the items from page 1 of the summary provided at the October 28th meeting. When and why the original 14 million reserve plan from the 2020 capital plan changed, why the 2021 OSL bylaw was not updated to include the originally proposed 19 million charge for recreation after the design decision was made, why there was only 8.7 million approved in the annual 2024 capital budget with no future anticipated spending when there was information of the anticipated costs available as just mentioned. Also adding a link to the operating cost analysis from the initial capital planning phase for this project would provide additional transparency for understanding what was done to identify the impact of the future operating costs for the life of the facility, whether or not that analysis played a role in the decision to go ahead with the project. Even once this information is available, it is concerning that such a major project has undergone significant changes to the funding plan. And now, there is another significant change presented in today's agenda. That leads to my second request, which is for clarification of what is being proposed for the reserves. Well, now passed. Based on the March 11th, 2024 RFD, the new reserve policy resulted in, number 1, pooling the existing 11 operating reserves into just the one tax stabilization reserve, pooling the existing 14 capital reserves into 3, the SURF, utility, and developer offsite levy. 3, removing content previously included in the repeal 2015 policy, but actually recommended by the RMA report listed as the secondary source in today's RFD. Unrestricted versus restricted reserves, RMA recommends municipalities seek to prioritize restricted reserves as they better support long-term planning and accountability. RMA page 9 describes using broad reserve categories like pooling, but including subcategories that better guide the purposes for which funds are reserved. Since Schedule A outlined the purpose, categories, and decision-making related to contributing to and withdrawing from each reserve, why was it not included in the new policy? Where can the information on the subcategories for the newly pooled TSR and SURF be found? With reference to new policy procedure number 4, how has the original intent of the TSR been met or changed to permit the proposed redesignation? In addition, policy procedure number 7 still defines the TSR as an operating reserve with the defined use as operating. So how is the redesignation to capital supported by the policy? It is also unclear why it took 3 years from the 2021 operating budget discussions to create the new reserve policy, and now, in just over 8 months after the policy took effect, significant redesignations that were not part of the March 11th RFD proposed pooling are now suddenly happening during a major budget process for a project that is already underway. This is concerning. In closing, I would ask each member of council to reflect on the magnitude of this financial decision. The recent budget deliberations and decisions made by our neighbors to the north got me thinking about council's decision from another perspective. Calgary's population is roughly 100 times the population of High River. Confirming the math on that, multiply High River's 14,000 population by 100, and you get Calgary's roughly 1.4 million. Likewise, if you take the 26.8 million cost of the town's expansion project and also multiply by 100, you get 2.68 billion. Not million, billion. It does not seem likely that Calgary's council would propose spending $2.68 million on a rec center expansion, expecting residents to support a $1.3 billion commitment of flexible funding in addition to paying for replenishing reserves for $1.4 billion to provide for other necessary items does not seem realistic. My reflection on this leaves me questioning what impact Council's decision to spend this $26.8 million will have on the long-term financial health of the town and its residents. Thank you for your time.
Can you submit that,
Yep.
please? I'll take it right now, Iris. I'm confused on the comparison to Calgary. I don't really know where that, thank you.
You're welcome.
The one piece I'll answer, just to be clear, like the significant changes that are taking place right now in the use of our reserves are because we can no longer borrow money to do this project. So there's only one way to pay for it, and that's because of the these reserve accounts that we have that, you know, we are going to draw from those reserves to finish the project. The project is not stopping. The project is not going, it's going to be completed, and we are going to use the reserves to pay for it, which achieves what the contention was around building the project, where it won't be a 30-year borrow, there won't be any interest, there won't be a tax increase on it. We're basically going to pay cash for it out of reserves. Half of it. The other half comes from grants, MSI, LGFF. So just to clarify that for the community. Now, I don't know, I got to go through this to understand where the 1-point-something billion dollars analogy came from, but I don't understand that. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Thank you again for coming today, Iris. Once again, you've provided valuable information. Your diligence and tenacity in digging deep and finding these things is great. I will say only one other thing, and that from this point, I can't answer any of your questions that you brought forth on October 28th because we've been yet to receive your presentation. We don't know in writing what was said, so when we receive that, we can review all the questions and all that really deep information that you found. But without that given, we can't answer your questions effectively.
May I respond?
Absolutely, I would hope.
So I did provide the 2-page summary, and all of the content is available on video.
On video. So further to Mayor Snodgrass's comment, generally when we receive a delegation, such as the group of petitioners did, the content that you're going to share verbally, which we do capture on video with all meetings, of course, if we aren't given the opportunity to make ourselves knowledgeable of the content you're sharing, we can also not be expected to provide answers.
Just to make sure I understand, or again, our delegation wasn't expecting responses on the day of the delegation, and that was the purpose of providing the summary to council members so that there was the opportunity for a takeaway. And the summary was directly tied to the sequence of all of the comments that could be heard word for word in the video. So I'm not clear as to what would have been missing.
Thank you.
I'll clarify one thing on that.
Thank you.
Brenda, your 2-page summary in no way summarized what you said in that meeting. I took 3 hours one day to go through and make notes of the whole presentation because that's all we had to go on, which formulated my response at the last council meeting. So we asked you to submit what you had said as you did today, which we did not receive. It wasn't handed to us. We got that 2-page summary, which was basically a Gantt chart, I think you call it, but of little bubbles. It in no way summarized where you went at that meeting, Ira. So I thank you today for providing this and that we can answer directly to it.
May I respond?
If I may, that is exactly what I was referring to. I wouldn't think for a second that you could provide a high-level 2-page overview as shared from the October 28 meeting. There is no way any of us could find the information we need off those 2 simple sheets. If it took you the work and time it did to bring that together, you cannot expect us to find answers on your high-level overview. Going forward, if you'd like to share that information with us, because I'm sure you've accumulated it now, we would be better poised to answer your questions.
I think, again, just for clarification, if I may, the purpose of the summary was not to provide you with details. The purpose of the summary was to give the overview of the pieces of the content and the details contained in the video. And perhaps this was an error on my part, but in thinking that the video had value, that's where I thought council would be getting their information from. And to respond to the mayor's comment that he had to take notes on the video, again, I was thinking people had awareness that technology exists to create the text from video. It takes about 30 seconds to do. So I did not realize that if the video wasn't sufficient, that technology would not be used.
Thank you. And I guess this is just all a new thing for all of us to learn. So going forward, your summary and perception of what was said, I appreciate that. If you want further, I would look forward to reading your notes as well.
Yeah, and just to be clear, like all future delegations have to submit what they are going to say, period, or we will not allow the delegation to proceed. That's exactly what happened this morning with Foothills Pride Group, and it's going to be fair across the board because, sorry, Iris, to say, well, just use software to chat GPT or whatever you want to use to formulate text is not acceptable. That's the expectation that we're going to do that. If you are going to come as a delegation, you can submit your material prior to, just as Carol did with the petition group. But that's what's going to have to take place from here on. So,
thank you for that
It's not a new
clarification.
policy,
thank you.
right?
Thank you for this, and we'll continue on. Any other public comments? See none, hear none. Council correspondence requiring action. Municipal Days of Respect and Support requests, Harvard Parades and Light Society Annual Santa Claus Parade, ask for a motion from Councillor Jones that council authorize the administration building be illuminated red and white on December 6th, 2024 for High River's annual Santa Claus Parade.
I'll give you that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. West Winds Communities request for approval of borrowing beyond 1 year associated with Alberta Housing Act, the Drake Town, so it doesn't really affect High River. It's just because we're a member of it, that's a member of West Winds, that we have to make this motion in every municipality. So I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Kinghorn that council approve the request of West Winds Communities for an extension of borrowing funds beyond a fiscal year in accordance with section 25.2.A of the Alberta Housing Act Management Body Operation Administration Regulation 243/94 and amendments thereto.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. You have a motion.
All in favor? Carried. Nothing further. Meeting adjourned 3:41.